Hello, everyone. Welcome to Under the Wing. I am your host, Andrew Wingard, and I am extremely grateful that you're sharing your time with us today. I am excited that I get the opportunity to share with you the experiences and stories from all walks of life. Gather round and let's begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Under the Wing. I'm your host, Andrew Wingard, and I got my brother with me today. My brother, Jaron Davis, man. How you doing, man?
Oh man, I'm blessed, bro. How's everything going your way?
It's going, man. It's going. It's long time no speak, long time coming.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you taking time to catch up and chat, man, and share a little bit about your journey. So I appreciate you jumping on with me tonight.
Oh, bro, the pleasure is mine, man. I'm excited. I'm excited to see where this takes us.
Yeah, man. Let's jump right into this, man. And I meet you in 2007, Wilson,
Mhm.
North Carolina, Charis Prep, down there at prep school, man. An experience, an experience in itself, right?
Bro, I don't even know. I don't know where you want to start. Start it. I'm curious, man, because the the older I get, because now we're closer to 40 than 20. You know what I
Right.
mean? So the older I get, the more vast I realize uh, just the amount of things that we got the opportunity to experience in such a short time span. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I was only out there, I think, let's see, September through December.
December.
There was a
September.
lot that went on, bro, over that time.
I mean, I think we maybe played like 40 games.
Absolutely,
I
man.
mean, at least 30 within
Yeah,
that
bro.
time.
And I tell you, you know, I don't know how much you want to get into kind of the responsibilities that even you had, when we moved, I guess for the listeners to know, at one point there was one house, and there may have been, I don't know. I just remember that second day after we started meeting people, everybody was looking like they were, in between our heights. I'm
Right.
6'2", you about 6'4", and so I'm just like, okay, and then we end up counting up 18 guards. So I'm like, all right, how's this going to work? And then we find out, okay, there is another house. And so when I start talking about responsibility, I'm talking about even the responsibility that maybe you didn't even know you were carrying by being pretty much the only one at our house with the car, but
Right.
maybe one of maybe three or four people on the whole team with the car.
With a car. Right.
And so in order to, I guess, paint the picture, none of us were locals to Wilson, North Carolina. So,
Right. Right.
in our house, we have me, you, Jared Mabry, Dario Hunt, and Dami
And Dami.
Sapar. Um, and this was my first time. This was probably the first time. This is the first time I saw. It wasn't the first time I saw my dad cry. My dad is hard. I mean, he softened up a lot over the years, but when he dropped me off, he cried, and I never saw him cry for anything pertaining to me personally. I think
Right.
the only other time I think I saw him cry, honestly, it may have been never. I saw him cry two times after that when his siblings passed in following years. Before that time, that was something I never saw come from my dad, who was always extremely hard on me specifically as it pertained to basketball.
Right.
So then, getting dropped off, my dream as a kid was always to be away from home, far. I wanted to be in a city somewhere. And I think that was the first time I cried for anything in relation to missing somebody after
Yeah.
I got dropped off. Because I didn't cry in front of them because I felt like if I did, they probably wouldn't have allowed me to stay.
Right.
It was
Right.
already tough. I mean, we're 18 years old, bro, and we weren't working jobs out there. And here we are now just getting thrown into, you know, a furnace.
Right. I say we pretty much in the wilderness at this point. because
That's right.
nobody's. I mean, there were a couple guys who were from Goldsboro,
Hmm.
in those areas, but for the most part, we were all from out of town.
Yeah, yeah, out of town, and really, I'm not trying to highlight any of the down. There's so much dark we could get into, but
Right.
of the positives, it was such a war zone in what I've grown to appreciate in the healthiest of manners as far as what took place on the basketball court there that I've been able to apply. Like I felt like I went in there mentally tough, but I came out substantially tougher.
Yeah.
Uh, because of just like kind of you mentioned off the record, all of these people here and essentially with the dream of playing Division 1 basketball and willing to do whatever to a teammate or anything to
Yeah.
see it happen.
Right.
Um, I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts
So that's
are
that's
on
that's
this.
what that's why I want this to go, because I'm a believer in taking what you can from an experience.
Mhm.
And I live again with you, Dami, and I was so grateful for the experience. So you came in already mentally tough. I was not. I was not to that point. I didn't even know what work really was until I got there. Like the amount of work that we would put in every day, the
Oh,
amount
for real?
the amount that you and Dami put into your fitness, like all of that stuff is all of that I learned with y'all. Like so I started developing during that experience. And so that's what I want to dive into is, what are a couple things or a couple lessons that you learned either about yourself or that you took with you from that experience at Charis Prep.
Oh man. So, I'm gonna have to go ahead. Like I told you, I'm very transparent and sometimes I do make people in my family upset with stuff I talk about. But um the doctor, Pastor Eric Thomas, talks about this too, because when he wrote his book, he mentioned that his mom and people were upset. But the thing about it is, we go through things for God to be able to allow us to reveal these things as a testimony to other people. So, we're basically, you know, my upbringing, I still grew up in a two-parent household. I'm from the Midwest like you, and times were rough at times.
Yeah.
Now, I think what people fail to realize in our age group when we start talking about going to therapy and doing all these things based on our upbringing, a lot of us didn't realize it was that bad when we were going through it. Like, and I have to always preface that because sometimes, people in my family, they get offended. And it's like, when I was a kid, uh, I still enjoyed my time as a kid. It wasn't until I started getting older that you start putting the microscope in on things and you're like, oh, wow, this might be why I'm this way, or this is why I act this way, or I get triggered in certain situations. So I say all that to say we were in some uncompromising situations, even though we were all together as a family, as kids, lots of evictions and all of this stuff like that. Uh, and so, you know, uh, poverty, but with here's the thing, poverty, but with the mask on to be able to try to show other people that we were middle class. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
That was like a black experience in the 90s for a lot of people. And so the thing is, the toughness was being built, but I felt like the toughness was not always tested. So
Right.
when I went out to Wilson, all of a sudden I realized uh, the stuff that I experienced kind of made it easier to navigate what I was seeing in Wilson. But before that, I felt like the quote unquote toughness that I had was not ever tested outside of maybe when I was on the basketball court.
Right.
But now we have a real life circumstance where literally, and again, bro, I don't like to try to paint the picture, but as we're talking, I'm starting to realize how not normal a lot of this was. Every day, our dinner our dinner was essentially leftover Wendy's or McDonald's sandwiches from the day before. You know what
Right.
I mean? So at lunchtime, we would have practice at 1. So at noon, they would bring in all the Wendy's,
The
chicken
McDonald's sandwiches.
sandwiches and the McDonald's McDoubles. we didn't know which one we was gonna get on either day, but they brought those in, and then we would have chips to go with it. And what a lot of us started realizing, like yourself and all of us, is practice was going to be so hard. There
Right.
was no reason to eat something like that prior to practice because
Exactly.
practice was brutal.
Right.
So essentially, now you're taking it home and you're eating it. It's probably 24 hours old. And the reason I say it's not normal is because now that I'm in the fitness industry, I already know. I mean, we know that
We
food,
were eating that
we
daily.
were eating that exactly, and that's first of all, it's really not really food to begin with. Then you figure it's 24 hours old, and that's what we're eating for a meal. You know, fending for noodles. I know the other house they survived off splitting those $5 Domino's
Those
pizza.
domino pizza boxes, and things are stacked.
Yeah, but the thing is, and I've heard plenty of stories from over in that house of people were, I mean, they were fighting over the ability to eat because honestly, their circumstances, our circumstances were cush compared to theirs.
Right.
Even just when you start talking about the neighborhood, even though we
Right.
were only about 5 minutes away, we were off of a busy street, not really any neighbors or anything like that,
Right across
and
from campus.
exactly, and the townhouse was fully brand just had been renovated.
Right.
So we were dealing with some, I believe, too, jealousy because it was looked at that we were in um, a nicer house. So
Right.
immediately you see these differences, even though we don't realize as such, when people are having as miserable of an experience they are in another house with also, the water. There was times over there where the water wasn't running, and you got
Right.
15 essentially young men over there. And so now you start to realize when they would, try to pick on us at our house and stuff, a lot of it was deeper rooted.
Right.
Um, so yeah, that's that experience. Long story short, it showed me why it was necessary to be tough or learn from the adversities I had to learn prior to being out there.
Right.
Uh, and none of us could call home. I think that's also, I think, a benefit in a way. Like it's hard to fathom me doing that with my kids because now it's kind of like, man, our parents they raised us a lot different.
Right.
And so you send an 18-year-old off, and you can still sleep peacefully at night. Thinking that, oh, my son is getting a great he's getting a great character building learning experience to become a man.
Right.
Um, but knowing what I know now, it's kind of like, is there another way that we can get our kids? Because, my son's 10 now. So
Right.
is there another method where I can prepare him, make sure he's mentally tough without suffering?
I think you bring up a good point though, because our parents shipped us off because maybe there wasn't an idea if there were other options, but now we know there are other options.
Yes, exactly, bro. And that's, again, the exposure of kind of that post prep school experience that yourself and I experienced, being able to go in all these different towns and cities, and you're navigating different cultures and some people that don't like you. And sometimes you're just getting exposed to different things, like different types of food.
Right.
you know, little
Right.
stuff like that just opens your world. And you're seeing people being successful, and you see that the mindset is more important than anything because it's like our situation, we thought bleak was the best.
Right.
Like a bleak situation is the best that we can do for ourselves. And then you start getting around people who only think positive, and they might even be having abundance. It's not necessarily being rich, but they're navigating life with, okay, I'm doing this because I've been afforded the ability to, but this is why I've been afforded the ability to. I did
Yeah.
XYZ on my way to here. So then you start seeing, oh, there's actual principles. It's not luck in
Yeah.
order to try to build or make something of yourself. Where some of us were taught essentially it was sort of luck. It's like work hard, but it's not, you're not working hard at the principles. You're just, if you can work as hard as you can, and then you reach something, whether that's in Michigan working for Ford or, whatever the case, that's your pinnacle.
Right.
So, yeah, bro, I mean, it was eye opening.
For sure. For sure.
But I'm very appreciative of that short time there. Even the missed meals, or the war zone on the practice court. Sports is like the ultimate learning module.
Right. We could spend an hour talking about the experience. Talk about Warzone. We're not gonna bring up we're not gonna bring up those battles on the court, man. We're gonna leave that. What
Uh,
what happened in that gym on that hardwood, man, we're gonna leave that there for another time. And so, I just wanted to get your perspective on that, because now we're 15 years away from that experience. And I was curious what you took from that experience. And I wanted to hear that, man. And so, one of the things that I've enjoyed most about watching you over the years is, yeah, you were a basketball player, right? You're from the Midwest, you gritty. But what people didn't know, or people don't know, is when we met, you had these drumsticks, and you were big on fitness, right? And so, 10 years later, I see you performing. I see you with Imperfect Fitness. I see what started, or probably I shouldn't say started, but when I met you in 2007 and seeing what it developed into, man, I was just it makes me happy to see, like, man, like, Jaron really put some work into this. Like, I don't know if people, they probably don't know because they didn't see, but I actually saw it, man. And so I'm curious. Yeah, just let's tell people, man, who is Jaron, man. I want you to talk a little bit.
oh man, I tell you, ever since I went on this journey as a business owner, I've constantly been reminded from people that I grew up with about the stuff they remember about me that I always felt was normal. And I think a lot of it is just passion. Passion was in me from the beginning. So because of that, before any of the ideas of fitness or anything, I was that 11-year-old, I'd be playing, or 11 years old. I'm playing at the YMCA on weekends, and I go down to the basement, see these dudes all, they all
Yeah,
jacked up, they brolic, and they, you got to do your push-ups, just start doing them, during every commercial break during the game when you're watching TV and stuff. So I was banging them out, and so long story short, like I said, ever since I started this company, every once in a while, somebody from back at the crib, they like, oh man, I mean, I remember you was doing this, or you've been doing this since pretty much we was in seventh grade, or we was this. And then I actually remember last week, I think I made a post on Facebook. I was thinking, I'm like, man, I was that guy. I was in middle school, and I would be trying to convince the girls in the class that they need to lift weights. And even back then, they would be like, oh, no, it's going to make me look manly. All of this information I was always consuming, like reading men's health magazines, at my dad's men's health magazines in fifth, sixth grade. I didn't realize what purpose it was serving. But
yeah,
the entire time, the reason it feels so natural is because it was one of those things where I did something that I've always enjoyed to do. And so it didn't feel like work.
yeah,
Um, and so that was something that I learned via exposure as the years went on. When I first started Imperfect Fitness, um, people were coming to me immediately asking for programs and stuff. And I felt like I was cheating people, like I, I, I kid you not. I mean, the programs, they take a long time. Like you purchase a program from me, they
yeah.
take a while to do. But at the same time, it was one of those things where I couldn't wait to do that
Right.
work. So I knew, okay, this might take me 5 to 10 hours, but I can't wait to get started. And I ended up talking to a lady who is actually a first lady at a church I was playing drums at, and I found out one day that she's just this big YouTuber. She does finance. I might as well do the name drop too. She goes by Frugal Chic Life
Uh
on
huh.
YouTube. And so I was talking to her, and she encouraged me. I did a free 30-minute consultation with her on the phone, and she's like, you know, um, things that you're doing in business should feel like it's not work. Because if it felt like work, you might as well stay at your corporate job. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I'm just like, man, that makes sense. Like, this is a weird feeling for me though, because I come from the Midwest and everything is blue collar. You
Yeah.
know, if you're not putting in 80 hours a week, you ain't doing nothing.
Right.
you know,
That's how it
so
is. It's cut like that.
exactly. So it's similar with fitness and drumming. You know, drums. I've been playing drums since I was 3, but there was a long gap where I didn't touch a drum set at all. Probably 4th grade up through the middle of my senior year. So where you saw me was like that was in that was at the pinnacle of my rejuvenation
Okay.
for the drums. So
Okay.
at the time that you saw me, you now that I'm remembering, you saw me. I had my practice pad, my
Yep.
sticks, because
Yep.
I was staying in the bunk on top of your bed.
Yeah. You had the sticks in the pad.
Yeah, and in the bed was only about 2 feet from the ceiling. So when you weren't home, I'd be sitting on your bed so I could actually practice on the practice pad. So the thing is now I remember because you were out of everybody else that was in the vicinity around that time, you were the inquisitive one that was like, "Oh, you got this drum DVD, or you watching this," and so at that point, I think that's slowly when the shift started to change between like I wasn't done with basketball, but I started to feel that tug of, I want to be a professional drummer. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I need to figure out what I need to be doing to get better at that. So yeah, that was a big time I think in my development. I still hadn't played a professional gig at that point. Um, that was probably let's see, that was 2007. So I didn't get a professional gig until 2009 or 10, and that was just a little $50 gig at a coffee shop. And
That's
I was
crazy.
so, bro, I was so geek, man. I was like, oh, I'm getting $50.
Right.
Now it's crazy because I don't even know if we should be talking about what I leave the house. I don't leave the house nowadays to play unless it has to be a nice,
Exactly. And
a nice.
that's exactly, man. And that's where, that growth and seeing that, man, that's why it always makes me smile, seeing all the work that you put in, man, and seeing where you are now. So what I want you to touch on is, imperfect fitness, and I've seen the brand grow and everything. And congratulations on your recent certification. So you now you're adding more pieces to the puzzle. And so I know you just got your what was it, therapy stretching certificate?
Yeah. I'm doing assisted stretch therapy now. So I started a company, Maryland Stretch Factory,
Okay.
which is basically it's just under the Imperfect Fitness umbrella. But to be honest with you, I felt like it needed another name because I didn't want it to be one of those things where the only way you would be able to find this particular stretch clinic was if you just happened to be at Imperfect Fitness Gym to be working out.
Yeah.
So I needed to build something that can kind of grow on its own, and now people will learn about Maryland Stretch Factory, but then they'll find out about the gym just because they might be coming to the gym in order
Right.
to stretch there. So it's
Yeah.
kind of just creating multiple businesses to kind of funnel. It's all intertwined anyway.
Right.
So
Right. So
um,
we've I know the importance of stretching when it comes to working out and being an athlete. And so what I want you to do is, talk to me about a time where, you know, you've been stretched personally and kind of how that stretch made you who you are today. That stretch probably didn't feel too good when it was happening, as a business owner, as a musician, so I want you to describe me about a time that, maybe you were stretched a little bit and you look back on it like, man, I'm grateful for that stretch.
oh, absolutely, man. I mean, essentially everything that I do now is in a dark way. It's like chasing the stretch,
Yeah.
and that just comes from I mean, it's a faith-based perspective, but the thing about faith is once you've seen it happen once, you're like, oh wow, like God showed up for me. But
Yeah.
then when it happens a second time or a third time, at some point you just start to believe this is how it is. Like when you have faith. And so now it becomes almost like that's my adrenaline rush. And so there's multiple situations where I've had to feel strain in my adulthood in order to move somewhere. And I've constantly saw God show up. So now it's kind of like as long as I'm doing what I need to do, I know that I can get through this hump. So
Right.
uh, there's a couple pivotal ones. I mean, there's marital stuff. You know, me and my wife went through two different separations over the course of our now 10 years of being married. Um, both of the two were early on, where I was quite frankly too young to be getting married to begin with. But it was in those times I felt some strain.
Yeah.
When I relocated to try to make the marriage better, and it caused more strain because when I moved to Maryland, I didn't know anybody. This
Wow.
was, I had some safety nets where I could have moved. I could have moved to Denver. I had some of my old teammates from junior college out there still, and they were actually going to help me get on my feet out there because they're like, you got a place to stay and stuff. And I looked at it as I can't be in a comfortable position because if I move out there, I don't want to be the person moving somewhere and I know I got somewhere to stay. And now getting on my feet doesn't happen because of that comfortable situation.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm gonna go out to Maryland because statistically, there was, you know, there was more diversity. There's more, statistically speaking, Black people doing well as a whole, and it's that close proximity to all those major cities, kind of like we talked about off the record.
Right.
So for my music, I felt like, okay, New York is the pinnacle for jazz drumming. So I don't want to live in New York, but if I can get somewhere where I can get up there in 2-3 hours, I can still make it like I'm living up there. So
Right.
so I came out here. I took a corporate job just to make sure everything was in place. And then the next strain was leaving my corporate job for to start the gym full time. And so I guess a nugget for people would be sometime you have when you start to see that stretch, you start to feel that stretch,
Yeah.
go ahead and be fully stretched.
Yeah.
Because what's funny is I left my job October of 2019, and they asked me to stick around a little bit in a part time role till December, just to transition the person taking over for me. And had I not left the job when I left it, the pandemic came in March,
Right.
and so the fact that I started my job, I was already building up a name, building up clientele. There's no way I would have been able to just start that business up out of nowhere when a shutdown happened and people were losing jobs.
Right.
So it shows why sometimes, reacting without overthinking is important.
Right.
So the next time I was stretched was when I moved out of the basement last year to get a almost 3,000 square foot facility, man. I'm telling you, bro, I chase the adversity now. As
That's
weird as
awesome.
it sounds, it forces me to be faithful. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah,
No, that's
man.
that's good. That's good, man. So we going I got one more question. You already hit on it a little bit before we start wrapping up things. And you talked about once you feel that stretch, just embrace the stretch. And there may be somebody listening to this like, man, that sounds all good. You know what I mean? I hear you. Stretching is uncomfortable. And I don't know even where to start when it regards to stretch. I want to do this, but I don't know where to start, man. And so if you can give that individual some advice, I know you gave them that one nugget when you feel the stretch to keep stretching, but how do you get to that initial stretch if someone's looking to do something and really stretch themselves and get out their comfort zone? What's a piece of advice that you would share with them?
Man, that's a powerful question. Everybody's different, and going back to what you talked about earlier with our basketball experience and upbringing, that's what gives me the ability to be
Yeah,
stretched now. But to talk to other people, because I do a lot of I guess quote unquote life coaching with my clients. The thing about it is you have to be willing to take the test. And I
yeah,
like what Eric Thomas said about that one time too, that people are avoiding the test so you don't know. At some point you have to take the test and see if you pass or fail. And that's essentially what I started to do. And the thing about it is, if specifically to people that they want to better themselves, they want to better their career, um, find the things that are positive, because there's going to be naysayers. There's going to be people talking about, oh, well, when I tried to do this didn't work. You look to find positives, because the negatives are always there without looking.
yeah,
Positive things you have to work harder to find. And so a good example of that for me would be when I was getting ready to start my business. And at first that was getting into my head too. It's like, oh, most businesses are, they're shut down in the first 5 years and all this stuff. But as I started really researching, I started realizing, oh, the state of Maryland has a 90% success rate. So
Right.
at that point, my thought process was, uh, if I'm part of that 10% that can't make it, I don't deserve to be in business, no way.
Right.
And I think that the thing about that is in order to be willing to fail, you have to also not think too highly of yourself,
Yeah, that's
because
good.
essentially you're trying to put that safety net under yourself for fear. What is the worst thing that can happen? Once you start putting all those in your head, most of it is phantom stuff.
Yeah.
So you just go for it. And then you trust, even if it doesn't work out, you can just pivot into doing something else because, again, you have to remove your ego at anything. In order to be stretched, you have to remove your ego because you may lose some things first in order to gain, but you have
Right.
to be able to do that.
Right. No, that's good, man. That's good, brother. That's good, man. So, as we wind down, and I end the episode the same with everybody. And I'm sure you've heard the idea of giving someone their roses while they're still alive, man. And so what I would like you to do is give someone their rose today. Someone that's been a mentor to you, or a friend, someone that's helped you out through tough times, man. Would like for you to share that rose with that person today, if you don't mind.
Oh man, I know we don't got a lot of time. I'm gonna go back to a super a time that even this guy probably doesn't remember, but it's a homie of mine. He goes by Chill. His name is Chris Hill, drummer, and we kind of came up the ranks together as far as on drums when I moved to Texas. And there was a time uh, where I literally didn't have any money. This might have been the only time in my adulthood where I was just super cash strapped. And he gave me $15. He's like, "Hey man, you need to borrow a couple bucks." And that was tough for me because, again, that pride, man. I wanted to, no, I'm good,
Right.
but I went ahead and said, I'll come up to Guitar Center, and because he was working at Guitar Center, I'm like, I'll come up there, I'll get the $15. You know what I mean? And that gave me enough gas to get back and forth to work for like 3 days in order to get my check. And so that's crazy. I just thought about that, but it might be because he's been on my heart a lot lately. Uh, he just lost a lot of his music equipment and stuff in a fire. His house burned down 3 weeks
Oh
ago.
man.
So definitely giving my flowers to you, bro. I still talk to you, often, but not as often as we used to. But definitely appreciate you showing me that people could be there and not even tell people you had to give me money. So I'll go that direction. There's tons of people I could give flowers to.
Oh, for sure, man. Shout out to the homies, man.
Yeah, man.
Because we all need them, man, and we're all on this journey together, man. So we gotta show love to the homies. And so what I want to give you time to do, my brother, is I know you're in the DC area. I got some folks in the DC area, but I also know that you mentioned you send me that workout. I forgot when that was. But there's stuff you can reach people, man, across this country, man. So what I want you to do is you have so much going on, whether it's with your music and with Imperfect Fitness, man. So take some time, man, and share a little bit about where people can find out more about Jaron and more about Imperfect Fitness and everything that you got going on.
Yes, sir. I'm very personable. I know. I guess I'll call you Andrew for like. I know he's talking me up, but I'm very easy to reach. You can reach me at Jaron Lamar Davis on Facebook. That's my personal account. You can see me on there when I'm on Facebook. I take a lot of time off. I might be ranting about something, or I'm just sharing fitness things, or just positive thoughts, or some laughter, just to make people feel better about themselves. Feel free to message me on there. I'm on Instagram as imperfect man underscore or either underscore imperfect man. See, that's how it works, man. But either way, I'm on there on IG. You can find my gym under Imperfect Fitness Gym. That's GYM as in mother. I also have the Stretch Therapy Clinic on Instagram and Facebook. You can please go like the page. That's Maryland Stretch Factory. If you want to read about any of my music things of the like that, you can find me on www.jaronlamardavis.com. That's JARON Lamar Davis. And same on Spotify for music, Jaron Lamar Davis. I got some good stuff on there. Write my own material, even from the drum set. So those
Didn't
are all.
you create a playlist not too long ago? Because I think I did.
You know what? I did. I actually need to upload it. That was just a little fun. I create playlists all the time, but the one you're probably talking about is the one where I got some of my music on there
That's
too.
what
It's
I
kind of
thought.
like a funk
Yeah,
oriented
yeah.
playlist. So yeah, definitely check that out. I need to upload some more tunes to that as well. So this has just been a pleasure,
Nah,
bro.
always, bro. Yeah, I hope you know we got to do part 2 because we didn't get through half those questions, bro.
Oh yeah. No, we might have to do a part 2 and 3, man.
Oh, for sure, man. For sure, man. I
Yes,
know you're
sir.
busy, man, and so I do appreciate you taking time to catch up and connect, man. It's been long overdue, my brother. And like I said, man, hopefully I'll be in a DC area at some point in time over the next few months, and we'll have to get together.
Definitely got to connect.
Thank you so much for listening to Under the Wing. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you enjoyed today's show and you would like to support the podcast, tell a friend or two, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Facebook at Under the Wing with Andrew. Again, thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time.